Hey, what's up, everybody? Think about what just happened today. Trump went down to a New York City bar, a Bitcoin bar, a Bitcoin bar. But that's not the interesting part. The interesting part is he chose to go down to this bar when? Today. What is today? It's Fed Day. They're lowering the interest rates. This is a message to everybody out there saying, look, the Federal Reserve, their system sucks. It's causing economic slowdown. It's causing a bad economy. So, during Fed Day, what am I doing? I'm spending Bitcoin at a bar. Look at me. Look at the cameras. Look at this.
On Donald Trump. He is in a bar, I believe, in downtown New York called the Pub Key in downtown Manhattan. Maybe we can play up some sound here, guys, and see if he says anything. Scan that QR code right here. Right there. That one.
I mean, guys, he's literally taking his phone out and scanning a QR code about to make a Bitcoin transaction. I mean, that's cool. I mean, that's awesome. But he's doing it. He chose to do it today on Fed Day. So I see those little things like that. People don't really notice things like that, but things like that have a real message, right? He basically Trump's coming out and saying, "Look, the Fed, their system, it sucks, and it totally needs to be reconstructed." Right? And if you go back and look at all his old tweets about the Fed, he called it his biggest threat, right? The Fed is the biggest threat. Why? Because the Federal Reserve central banking system is the number one reason why we have all of these problems. He talks about Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, but it's really they're puppets. They're nothing. They're nothing. The real problem lies in the deep state, embedded corruption, right? And that all stems through a fiat currency system. Now, I might be going way too far with this, and I might be a big stretch. I might be totally wrong. But just my opinion and things that I notice about Trump, especially when it comes to crypto, because that's why I even give the time and attention, because how so heavily it is in regards to what happens with crypto. And things like this, you could call it a political stunt. You can call it whatever it is. He is advertising himself, right? People are seeing this, for the first time, and it's really waking a lot of people up, educating them about Bitcoin. I mean, think about all the redneck Trump supporters out in the hills, never heard what Bitcoin. They turn on the news, they see the president, who they highly respect, right, making a Bitcoin trade. Hey, he's doing it. He trusts Bitcoin. He trusts crypto. Maybe I should buy some too. Grocery prices are going up. Gas is going up. Inflation is killing me. This currency that I'm holding is becoming more and more worthless, right? I need more dollars to buy the exact same product. But I see my president, Trump, right? He's buying, he's using Bitcoin. So, hey, maybe I might too, right? And also gold and silver. He hasn't really spoke much about that, but he has talked about a gold standard and sort of how nice it would be to go back to a gold standard. He said it would be a very difficult thing to do, but ultimately, it's probably the betterment, right? So what my assessment, my thinking here, I could be wrong, but I think once he wins, the first thing is he's got to win. The second thing is, are they going to let him in? And the third thing is, there's going to be a big fight, right? I believe there's going to be, a lot of things about certifying the election. You're going to hear that. Certify the election, it's going to be probably real tough to get anything certified, rather who wins, right? So I think there's going to be a struggle there. But once all of that gets settled out and Trump actually does get to be president, I think that's when the ball's going to get really rolling when it comes to the Fed and crypto and the solutions that are going to be needed, because it's going to happen, right? The economy it might not feel like that right now, but it's going down, down, down. And I think even when Trump wins, it's still going to keep going down, right? So he's got to blame something because he can't blame himself, and it's not his fault, and it's not really Joe Biden's fault either, although he is responsible with a lot of the spending. But all of this was, you can't really pinpoint one president. It's not presidents, it's the central bank. Central banks own the politicians. That's just the way it is, right? He who has the gold makes all the rules. Who has all the gold? The banks. That's where they keep it, right? So I think at the end of the day, we're going to see a lot of crazy sort of situations occur. And once all of that sort of settles down, we're also going to see a massive, in my opinion, a massive alt season, a crypto rally, and probably a generational type of event where we have this sort of capitulation out of the old system into the new system, right? So I think you're going to see people capitulating out of the dollar. They're already lowering rates. They went down 50 points, right? So what do people do? That means money is cheaper, right? So that means money is going to be thrown around a lot easier, right? So that means more of that is going to find its way through the crevices of crypto and other places. And then ultimately, I think, being on the right side of this macro long trade. Now, we still don't know if we're going to be going in that fifth wave or going down into reaccumulation. I just put a video out on the analysis on that. So, but anyway, I just thought I'd come out today because I was, look, it's Fed day, right? I'm looking at things, and I'm looking at things with the economy. They talked about the labor market, and YouTube hits me with a notification, and it says right here, watch Trump make transaction. I'm like, what the heck is this? What the heck is this? And then I started, and then it hit me. I'm like, wait a minute, it's Fed day, and Trump is at a New York bar transacting. I mean, that's a fu to the banking system. That's what that is. He just threw his middle finger up at the Fed. He's saying, you guys are over there in your little meetings talking about how you can, they're basically rigging the economy in a manipulative way by currency devaluations and other things like that. And, I'm over here at a Bitcoin bar and having a good time. So I think this is just a message. I could be wrong, right? Maybe it's a coincidence, but I don't think there is any in politics, right? I don't think so. So, anyways, I think Trump's going to win. There's going to be a fight over the White House. He's going to get in, but the economy is not fixed. He's going to, do things with energy and things like that. But ultimately, the system itself needs attention. And I think that's where an audit of the Fed or, even, a restructuring, right? I think maybe they can migrate a lot of that power through the Treasury Department, right? Why? Think about this. Why does a privately owned system entity in control of our entire multi-hundred trillion dollar monetary system, that seems like a lot of power, right? Don't you think some of that power should be decentralized? Don't you think some of that should be backed by gold? I mean, what is it backed by? by their money printers. That's what it's backed by. I mean, it's backed by nothing. So I think that's where crypto has the big right advantage, is the future of our financial system. And I'm not saying it's got to be Bitcoin. I'm not saying it's got to be XRP. But you know what? I don't see anything else. So I mean, obviously, we got Theta, right? We got a lot of other altcoins out there. I think Matic is going to do well with Polygon. I think obviously Bitcoin. So I mean, there's many out there. Filecoin. So, but even beyond that, right? When you talk about AI, when you talk about it doesn't matter layer one, layer two. Basically, crypto is an anti-debt instrument, but more than that, it's it's technology driven. And what do we have now? We have basically an old 1800s or early 1900s clunky sort of Fed system based off the old banker way, right? And if you look at Donald Trump, right, and when he was president, he was in the Oval Office and there was a picture. He hung a portrait up. He could have hanged up anything he wanted. But do you know who he hanged up? He put up Andrew Jackson. Now, why would he do that? Why would Donald Trump put Andrew Jackson? He could have picked anybody. He picked Andrew Jackson. Why? He's a Democrat. By the way, he was the first Democrat president, Andrew Jackson. But his whole thing was what? The bankers. The bankers, right? If you type Andrew Jackson, the bank war, or the banking system in Google, or Andrew Jackson banking quotes, you're going to see a lot of stuff, right? There was a big feud over that. He called them a den of vipers and thieves. He said, I think his last words were, "I killed the banks," right? So he was down with the banks totally. And I think Trump is too, because he knows exactly how the banking system works. He's been battling the banks his whole life. Think about his bankruptcies, right? People say he's not going to be a good president because he went bankrupt. Well, I think going bankrupt sucks, but I think it's a good learning experience. And I think you learn how to leverage yourselves around the banks by going through bankruptcy, right? Being able to walk away and not owing anything, right? Because that's what is a bank for? To loan you money. So they loan you money and then you go bankrupt. You don't have, basically you're not paying the banks, and being able to walk away with a settlement or however that works. He knows, based off all his business ventures, how to deal with banks and how they really operate. And by the way, also he's a big guy with gold, right? If you ever look at his hotel suites and things like that, I mean, it's gold this, gold that. I mean, so, and now he's at a Bitcoin bar, right? And if that wouldn't be enough, I know those are just little tiny things that really is just maybe not, right? But it's just interesting when you see, if you just go to, like, for example, Google, you can see, like, Trump has tweeted about the Fed 100 times since nominating Jerome Powell. Trump's tweets threaten Fed's independence, right? Trump's attacks on the Fed are moving markets. Why is he attacking the Fed, right? You could see it right here. Trump calls Federal Reserve my biggest threat, right? Right here, escalating attack. Trump calls Federal Reserve his biggest threat. Now, that was back in the day, but, right, you can see they're moving interest rates too fast. That was his reasoning behind that. But still, I mean, you think about it, I think a sound money system, I think he knows that no matter who's president, because he knows he's going to be gone one day, right? And nobody's going to know how to fix this. So I think now's the time to really introduce a new sound money type of system, because the central banks are wanting to come out with what? The CBDC. And what did Trump say about CBDC? He said, under no circumstance will that be allowed to happen under my watch, right? So I think, when are they going to introduce the CBDC, right? They're going to introduce it probably after the next event, right? Or they might wait until after Trump's gone, right? They might take another 5 years. But I think ultimately they will. And I think ultimately it's going to be, when that time comes, right? There's going to be two different systems we can choose, right? Are we going to go down the old Federal Reserve central banking CBDC system that put us in the same problem in the first place, right? With the Federal Reserve having all of this power over our economy with a rigged scam, right? I mean, interest rates and all of the whole entire sort of layout of how they operate. It basically makes the rich richer, the poor poor, and it makes us work harder for less, right? Because it's always devaluing. So ultimately, it's a failed system. Now, if you have something backed by gold, right, on the blockchain, decentralized, one for one, right? When you put $100 in the bank, they loan it out 10 times, right? And it's basically this fractional reserve type of system that really shoots us in the foot. So I think Trump knows that. And that's what I'm saying. I think everything is boiling down to Trump versus the Federal Reserve. And now I've been feeling this way really since like 2018 when I started figuring it out. In regards to Trump and the Fed. Now, as far as all of the corruption and treason, now we've been knowing that's been going on for a long time, even forever. I mean, really. So I think we are definitely in interesting times, and I just think it's hilarious that Trump went down to a New York City bar, a Bitcoin bar, on Fed Day, right? And he talked about the Fed. Let's see. So it says Trump weighs in on the Fed rate to cut. Trump agrees Fed may be playing politics. Trump on Fed's, it was a big cut, right? He's acting like that's a big cut, 50 base. What happened to 25? We skipped 25. We went right to 50, right? Because we need it, right? Because it's right before the election. They want to prop up the economy, right? The numbers coming out, and right before, and they say, look at this, but I think it's a little too late. So, I mean, you can see right here, former President Trump on Wednesday said the Federal Reserve decision to cut interest rates showed the economy was struggling, or the central bank was just playing politics, or maybe both, right? Trump made a stop to PubKey, a self-described Bitcoin bar in New York City, ahead of a planned rally on Long Island. So, and if that's not enough, think about his son, right? I mean, think about what they're starting. They're starting a DeFi system, right? And what is DeFi? It's decentralized finance. And what does that mean? That means it's anti-centralized finance. And what is centralized? It's finance. It's the banks, right? They offer financial services. Why do we need the middleman? The banks are basically greedy savages that want to steal all your money. Really, I mean, that's how it's always been, right? Now I'm sure there's some banks that are good, but the whole system itself doesn't need to be there, right? Because you can make finance decentralized, competing bids against certain rates, right? I know banks do that, but if you decentralize it, I think it makes it a lot, more rewarding for us, right? So, because all of the money I would have had to pay an interest to a central bank, a brick and mortar bank, I could have saved by it doing directly through the blockchain. So, yeah, I think DeFi is going to be a big deal. I mean, if Trump is positioning his family into DeFi. So that means he knows what's coming. Otherwise, why would he risk his hard-earned money for that, right? Because Elizabeth Warren, Nancy, right? I think Nancy Pelosi and obviously Joe Biden, Kamala, they say they like Bitcoin, but they don't like it, right? They want to ban it because it's a threat to the banks. And if banks are under threat, then their corruption cannot continue. So they want to keep it status quo, right? The Hillary Clinton days. And then that's what they want. They want everything to go back to the way it was. Problem is, it doesn't matter if they could try to assassinate him twice. Maybe the next time they will, and they make it. But even if that happens, hopefully it doesn't, but if it does, it's still not going to stop what's coming, I think. Because, it's going to, I think, only make more people unified, and because everybody's on the same sort of situation. We're all riding this economy together. So if it all crashes and burn, we all crash and burn. But if we position ourselves accordingly, we could survive. And what do you think that is? I think that's capitulation out of the banks, out of the dollar, into hard assets, right? I mean, that could be food, that could be water, that could be cattle, that could be, wood, metal, steel, right? That could be minerals. I mean, precious metals. I mean, whatever it has value. So Trump says right here, I guess it shows the economy is very bad to cut by that much, assuming they're not just playing politics, Trump said. The economy would be very bad, or they're playing politics, or one or the other. But it was a big cut. Yeah, it was. So that's his weigh in on that. And remember, Trump's not going to come out and say the Fed is this and the Fed is that. He's got to play optics, right? When you're the president, you can't just come out on, people would say, like, why doesn't Trump just come out and say we need to end the Fed and screw the Fed, get rid of all the banks, and let's just get on crypto? Because that would be so hardcore, that would be so extreme. You remember, when you're president, you got to have optics. Optics are important for perception, right? So things have to go sort of accordingly. Everything has to like flow into motion. But if he came out full stop and said that, there has to be a big reasoning why. So I think that time is going to come, but I think it's going to take a big event for him to finally put his fist down and say, okay, now that event gave me the excuse to come out and say what I really been wanting to say this whole time, but couldn't due to optical reasons, right? Because if he comes out against the banks, I mean, the banks are the kings of the world, right? So he still needs central bank support. That's why when you have guys out there like, Gregory Mannarino, who's been nailing it, and I think he's awesome job, but his stance on Trump, I think, is a little bit misguided. But maybe I'll be proven wrong. I don't know. We'll see. But I think Trump, because the whole thing is, the Fed is the ultimate puppet master. Me and Gregory Mannarino, totally, I agree with that. Right? But as far as Trump not wanting to do anything about it, I agree that he can. He's not president. But also, again, you got to be, if you go full-fledged out against the banks, look what happened to JFK, right? But more than that, I mean, equal to that, you're going to be destroyed. Because how can you ever be president if you are openly saying how bad the banks are without really a big disaster? Like if it was back in the 2008 financial crisis, right, you could kind of come out and say that because there was an event for everybody to explain. But anyways, that was a long enough rant. Anyways, I think that was just another reason, another piece of confluence, another piece of conviction that crypto is here to stay. And speak of the devil, look at XRP right now is on the move. Look at this. This is a nice three-way move right here. Boom, look at that. That was a nice three-way move right there. And now we're starting to move on up. So maybe this is a 1 2 1 2 3 4 5, or we got a 1 2 1 2 3 4 5, right? And so I think either way, you know, this thing's looking pretty. So yeah, it looks like our Bitcoin and Theta fractal is definitely playing out. I mean, that thing, that's definitely a bullish candle right there. So I think this is probably going to continue. So remember this fractal, right? And just pause the video and just look at it, right? And it doesn't matter if it's not Theta. I mean, a lot of these charts look the same. I'm just using Theta as an example, but it's all of them. They all have the same style look, right? You know, if this was going to continue like it did here, then we should see that same thing, right? So, all right, guys, that'll do it. I will catch you guys on the next one. Cheers.